Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good night. I am Chris Kringle. This is Gaming Imperfectly. No, I am King Pigley. This is Gaming Imperfectly. Welcome to the channel, guys, and happy holidays. This last year has been absolutely insane, and we all know it. Boy, what just a sucker punch to the solar plexus this last year has been to us all worldwide. I mean, I think that kind of unites humanity. But anyway, this is a video I'm putting out for Christmas holidays, and instead of something dark and crazy, I want to bring you guys something a little bit more joyful and triumphant. So stick around, because this will put you in the holiday spirit, I promise. Back in 1997, guys, in a small town of Sylva, North Carolina, a guy named Bill Wilkerson would go to the local mall in Asheville, North Carolina, which is the largest town near to the very small town of Sylva. Now, Sylva has maybe a population of 1,200 people. It's a very, very small town. But Asheville, on the other hand, has a much higher population. It's well over 100,000 people. And so, why would Bill go? Why would this man go to Asheville on Christmas during December and the holiday season every year? Well, that's because Bill happened to have one quality about him that actually worked out extremely well for him in the holiday season. Bill looked like Santa Claus. And I'm talking about big bushy beard and the whole white hair and everything else. And actually for years, Bill had gotten the gig at the Asheville Mall to play Santa Claus. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. He's a grandfather himself, and he loved children. And to see their eyes light up with the awe of Santa every year as each one of them stood in line, anxiously waiting to see old Saint Nick, it just warmed his heart. He loved it. It was just one of the best parts of the year for him. This particular year, Bill did get the gig again. And on this particular day in December, Bill was working at the mall. And this little boy comes walking up to him tentatively. And he looks down at the little boy and he says, "Well, hello, little boy. What's your name?" And he says, "My name's Peter, Santa." And so he picks the kid up and he puts him on his knee. He looks, though, Santa does look to see who brought him, and there's an elderly woman with him. And the boy, Peter, was holding something in his hand. And so Santa's like, "Oh, what do you have there, Peter?" And he looks down, and it was a picture of a little girl with big old blue eyes, blonde hair, cherub features, you know, just as cute as a button. And he goes, "Is that your sister, Peter?" And he goes, "Yes, Santa, it is. But she's really sick, and she's in the hospital right now." And suddenly, Bill was, taken back because he didn't expect this. And this was pretty serious, you know. I mean, usually it's pretty lighthearted with the kids. "What do you want for Christmas, little boy or girl?" And they tell him, and he goes, "Oh, well, be good, and I'll see what Santa can't do." And he gives them a candy cane or a peppermint and sends them off, you know. But this took him by surprise. And the seriousness of it put something on his heart, you know, a weight that he just didn't expect this particular day. He looked down at the little boy, and trying to keep things light, he asked Peter if he'd been good. And he says, "Yes, Santa, yes, absolutely." And he says, "Well, what do you want for Christmas, Peter?" And Peter says to him, "Santa, I don't know. I would really like it, though, maybe if you could come see Sarah at the hospital, because she desperately wanted to come see you, and she just can't because she's so sick. Is there any way, Santa, that you could come see my sister for Christmas?" And he says, "Well, I'm fairly busy, but I tell you what." He says, "Why don't you and your grandmother tell me where Sarah's staying at the hospital, what hospital she's staying at, and I'll see what I can't do." And so Peter jumps down off of Santa's lap. Bill waves his best Santa smile, still going, and points to his elves, who are, of course, people dressed as elves, standing over at the entrance. And so he sees Peter and grandmother go over, and he sees the grandmother write something down on a piece of paper. But by this time, Bill had to kind of get back in the game, the Santa game, you know, and look back down at the next child who's anxiously wanting to talk to Santa. But the rest of the day, this visit with Peter weighed on his heart. You know, he just felt the need to do something. And of course he wouldn't, because what if it had been his child? You know, what if it had been one of his grandchildren? And so at the end of the day, after many, many hours of being Santa Claus and having people sit on his knees and screaming kids and happy kids and angry adults and shopping and the craziness that is the mall at the holiday season, Bill's time was up for the day. And as he was getting ready to leave, he walked over to where his elves were, and he asked one of the guys playing his elves, whose name was Randy. He says, Randy, did that lady write down the address of the hospital where the kids were, that little girl was staying at, and he goes, oh yeah, I almost forgot. And he reaches underneath the counter, he pulls it out, and he goes, why, what's up with this? And he's like, well, I need to find out where it's at so I can go to the hospital. Now, the name of the hospital was Harris Regional, and it happened to be that Randy knew exactly where it was at. And he says, I tell you what, man, he says, I'll give you a ride, I'll go with you. And so, smiling, Bill thanked him, and him and Randy, Bill and Randy, jumped in their old four-wheel drive sleigh and took their truck over to the local Harris Regional Hospital, which is the local hospital. They found out what room Sarah was in, and they made their way up to the 4th floor, which is the floor she was on, and it happened to be the cancer ward. When they got there, Bill, again, was just... It's a very hard thing to be Santa Claus walking into a hospital on a cancer ward for sick children. And you could see their eyes lighting up as he walked past their windows, as he walked past each room. And it was really hard on him personally because he knew where he was going and he didn't, kind of expect other kids to see him for some reason. And now he's getting all this attention. He gets to Sarah's room and he peers around the corner, and when he does, in the room, he sees obviously what is Sarah's mother and father. He sees another lady that he doesn't know sitting in a chair. He sees Sarah's grandmother, who he had seen earlier, and of course her brother Peter, who were also in the room. And in the bed is a very sick-looking Sarah. She looks weak and tired. Her eyes were closed, and everybody in the room was just... you could tell depressed and sad, of course. And so he took a deep breath and, mustering his best, ho, 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 Bill Wilkerson made a grand Santa's entrance into the room. "Santa!" Sarah exclaimed. Suddenly, this child who looked so frail and sick was filled with energy and excitement. Her big, gigantic blue eyes, beholding Saint Nick walking through the door, gave her the life and energy that the family hadn't seen in months, And so Santa walks up and like, "Why, hello, Sarah. You didn't think I'd forget about you this holiday season." "Oh, Santa," Sarah says, "it's so good to see you. I wanted to come see you, hospital, but I couldn't leave." And he goes, "Oh, no, I understand." He says, "And your brother Peter came to see me and told me that you might like to talk to me and tell me what you want for Christmas and all this." And so they commenced to talking, and the room, the energy of the room of when Bill walked in, it totally shifted. It went from this very melancholy, depressed, to all of a sudden joy and happiness. There was a smile on every face, and the holiday spirit was flowing through the room. Sarah had energy to talk to Santa, and she was sitting up in bed, and just her eyes were shiny and full of life. And her and Santa had a great conversation. But as time passed, Sarah started showing that she was tired, and and she was spending a lot of energy, seeing Santa. And so, of course, Santa, realizing this, and being ultimately thoughtful and of Sarah's needs, realized that it was time for him to go. And so he whispered to Sarah again, "Why don't you tell me what you want for Christmas?" And so Sarah, listed off some very, very sweet things and says, "Oh, I've been such a good girl this year," and said, "I want a doll and I want this and that," and Santa just nodded and was really fighting, choking back the tears at this point in time. He asked Sarah, though, he felt compelled to ask Sarah, "Do you believe in magic, Sarah?" And she said, "Oh, yes, Santa." And he says, "Well, what about angels?" And she says, "Oh, I absolutely, Santa." And so Santa says, "Well, so do I." And he says, "Sarah, would you mind if I ask that angels come and look after you this Christmas?" And of course he glanced around the room and the parents nodded. And all religious perspectives aside, guys, this man was compelled to do all he could do for this poor sick child at Christmas time. And so he lowered his head and he placed his hand on hers, and he asked that God sent angels to cure and heal this sick child, and to look after this family during the holiday season and for the rest of the year and life to come, that they deserve good things, and that all positive things come their way during this rough and horrible time. And at the end of it, after end of his prayer, Santa took a deep breath, and in a very low and baritone voice, Santa started to sing Silent Night. And the rest of the family joined in, including Sarah. And by the end of it, there almost wasn't a dry eye in the room. But Santa stood up and said, "Now, Sarah, you be good. Focus on getting well, and I want to see you at my home at Asheville Mall next year." And she says, "Okay, Santa." And so he waved goodbye and he walked out of the room. And of course, Sarah's parents followed him out into the hallway, and Sarah's mother wrapped him in a hug. And Sarah's dad hugs him, and there's just like this group hug moment. And of course, they're weeping, and they said, "Thank you so much. This means everything to us." And, it was all Bill could do not to break down himself at this. But he says, it's the least I could do. Considering his grandchildren, what if it had been his family? He would want somebody to do this for them. As he made his way out of the hospital, Santa made sure to stop at each room that he had passed on his ways to see Sarah, to bring some Christmas cheer and holiday seasons to all the sick children that he had seen and that had seen him, because he just felt it wouldn't be right if he didn't. And Bill made his way home. The rest of that year passed, Christmas came and went, and another year came, 1998. And as the year ebbed and flowed, that holiday season came back around. And on the beginning of December, Bill went back to Asheville Mall to get his gig, and of course they welcomed him back with open arms. And he had put on his best Santa beard, trimmed it, and got his suit on. And a few days into it, he's just living that Santa life because he loves it. And he's saying hello to the kids and doing the thing that Bill loved to do every year. But all of a sudden on this particular day, he's sitting there and kids are coming up, and all of a sudden this one child, this beautiful blonde child, jumps up into his lap. He looks down, she goes, "Hi Santa, remember me?" And he goes, "Well, of course I do," because Santas can't not know every child on the planet. That's kind of the magic. So, even if he doesn't remember every child, he's not allowed to not remember every child. So, he just feigns it and goes, "Of course I do." She goes, "No, it's Sarah, Santa. You came to see me in the hospital." And he looks, and for a moment, he's just couldn't believe it and exclaims suddenly, "Sarah!" And he wraps his arms around this beautiful child, and he looks down at her, and no longer is her hair thin and patchy because of the cancer. No longer is her skin pale. She's healthy. She's got a glow about her. Her hair is thick and blonde again, and she's looking up at him with these giant blue eyes. And he almost couldn't believe it. He looks up, and there are the grandparents and the parents. Again, Peter waving, waiting for his turn to come sit on Santa's lap. And Bill went down as saying 100% that was the greatest Christmas gift that he had gotten in his entire life, and probably would ever get again. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me today. If you like this video, hit that like button. This is a 100% true Christmas miracle story. I hope you guys have just miraculous in itself holiday season with your loved ones. And I hope that the new year brings in a wonderful thing for us all, because God knows this last year has been a doozy. But this is it for King Piggly this year, guys. I am not doing another video for the remainder of the year. I'll be back with you after the New Year's. But I wanted to wish you all such a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, whether you celebrate the season or not. I still wish you the best. I hope you find some time to spend with your family, and I hope you find peace and joy and happiness. And ring in this new year, because I tell you guys, this new year's got to be better than the last. But that's it for King Piggly today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the new year.